morning and welcome back to the lecture series. So, we are discussing from our previous lecture the modern novel, the symptoms of the modern novel, what as an impetus to the modern novel, the larger social situations, the larger social happenings that lead to the formation of the modern novel. So, we are talking about the novel as a means of questioning fundamental existence of the the humankind. So, like Milan Kundera, Franz Kafka finds a problem in psychological realism. We were discussing how psychological realism gives away too much of details about the characters in a novel. Psychological realism replaces action with the interior core self. It brings the within entirely without, or that's the desire to dissect and bring before the reader all the details, all the complexities of the novel characters. It's a way of displaying everything about a character beyond which nothing is left to the reader's imagination, nothing is left to be explored. So it replaces action with the interior core self as the definition of the human essence. So, psychological realism has has a tendency to transcribe everything about a character, the intention of the character, the possibilities of the character to his or her actions, as though actions can be a mirror to one's self. Now, both Milan Kundera and Franz Kafka are not very happy with this style of writing, the psychological realism. Kafka is not interested in the internal motivations that determine human behavior. He would rather ask what possibilities remain for man in a world where the external determinants have become all too overpowering, so overpowering that internal impulses no longer carry any weight. They do not mean anything anymore. In Kundera's unbearable lightness of being, Kundera poses the following question. The novel after Kafka is not the author's confession, it is the investigation of human life in the trap that the world has become. So, novel tries to express this dilemma that the world is passing through, right? Kafka, both Karl Marx and Max Weber saw two different kinds of traps developing in the modern world, two traps that are symptomatic of the modern world. For Marx, the existential problem can be inadequately summed up in the phrases commodity fetishism and the alienation of labor, among others. So, when we are talking about commodity fetishism, we are referring to commoditization of everything. So after a point, human qualities also become commodities. And then we fetish commodity to an extent where the intrinsic human values, human possibilities are diminished to a great extent. And then alienation of labor, where humans are turned to one part of their body. So the human is reduced to the laboring hand. This symbol of hand keeps coming back. The rough, worn off hand of the labor keeps coming back in Madame Bovary again and again. So even Flaubert was exploring this question when he wrote Madame Bovary. For Weber, the prison house of bureaucracy or technocracy brought about by the need of the rising nation states for ever more specialized labor is symptomatic of the humans, the human existential crisis. So Kundera refers to 1914 as the beginning of the modern trap, that is with the First World War, the trap of globalization, the trap of history, which is not made by humans, which is beyond humans, and which, which impose itself on humans rather. And such a history is, uh, formed by some impersonal forces in another part of the globe, maybe. So, a history that does not allow humans as free agents, right? We see that such a history in the modern times seems to lack the human agency, and it sees all of humanity as the objects of its power. So, after the dawn of the 20th century, all existential questions are no longer merely pertaining to the individual, but they possess historical and political dimensions. Coming back to the novel, what is happening to the novel as a form, a literary form, against this backdrop? Novel is, you know, novel is essentially about being unconfined, traveling over different historical and geographical time spaces. So, change and experimentation are the two major elements that define the novel. But its core spirit, the core spirit of the novel, lies in metamorphosing into the understanding and acceptance that the human conditions of existence are flawed and limited. So, novel's oxygen is expansive meanings of social life and human existence, and the capability to think outside of biased interpretations. The life force of novel lies in the spirit of synthesis between opposite categories. It could be between rational and irrational, narrative and contemplative, all of which lend to the genre its complex structure. So, novel plays a role in countering the humanist dream of a unified humankind, of a unified history, unified way of rational thinking, scientific thinking, all of which humanism uphold. Novel is a comeback on that, and novel challenges any sort of reductionist forces. So, Milan Kundera notes that if the novel is to go on progressing as a literary genre, it must do so only by discovering the undiscovered in human life, something that is entirely at odds with a technological and technocratic understanding of progress. So, the novel's progress cannot be married to any understanding of social progress. Such a marriage would be a fiasco. The novel's progress and social progress, in the traditional sense of the term, do not gel well, because the social progress is, it refers to a univocality moving in the same direction. The humanity turned into a clone and moving in the same direction, an unthinking population. So, on the other hand, the novel's progress celebrates, ambiguity. It celebrates contradiction, aporia. So, Kundera affirms the novel's progress with the depreciated legacy of Cervantes and his quintessential work, Don Quixote. So, the essence of the modern as represented in temporality entails condensation of the length of the novel, because the concept of time changes in the modern period and further so in the postmodern period. So there is a need to see all of it at once, right? The reader should be able to remember the beginning when she reaches the end. This can be done through skipping or skimming too much of details. Once again, harkening back on what the psychological realism does, trying to detail too much, giving too much of description, leaving nothing for the reader's imagination. So, Kundera proposes ellipsis as a great way to not drift away from the overarching theme that binds the novel together. So, in a society of speed, which describes the modern society, we have the memory, the human memory, crammed by too many information at a great frequency. So information, we are bombarded with information coming from all directions at a great frequency. We are subsumed by information, simulated, dissimulated versions of the same fact, such that we don't know what fact is. It's the age of post-truth. So we see that memory has its limitations, right? Uh, we tend to forget. There is a tendency to willfully and involuntarily forget. There is an amnesia that pervades not only individual but the society. So the memory's limitations in such a society, which is super saturated with information from different directions, ought to be taken into consideration by the novelist. The intricacy of modern existence is well captured when the reader is able to see um, end to end. The meaning of the entire novel comes to the reader at once. Brevity facilitates going to the heart of the problem at once. So there is Milan Kundera insists on sharp juxtapositions and repetitions, which enable driving home the main idea rather than harping too much, digressing too much through uh, incidents and details, which are features of older novels. So older novels are characterized by too many information, too many incidents and details. There is a superfluity in a lot of explanation, in a lot of description and verbosity, something that modern novel wants to forsake. And so Kundera wants to do away with so much of details as a way of achieving the whole, the novel as a whole. With modernity, the novel acquires a polyphonic texture that replaces unilinearity with simultaneity. We have already discussed stream of consciousness and internal monologue. So even if characters and events never meet in the course of the entire narrative, they are bound together by a common theme. This theme is responsible for maintaining the unity of the novel, even if the diverse and disjointed events and characters make this unity look apparently fragile. So different characters and incidents are meant to dialogize with this common theme. So even though characters do not meet each other and events are apparently disjointed, each of these characters and incidents are nevertheless speaking to the common theme that also gives the novel its coherence. Kundera would call this as the self same thing reflected in three separate mirrors. So, when we compare the novel with music, like a polyphonic musical composition, a polyphonic novel requires equality of voices so that no voice dominates and makes another feel like it is ancillary or an accompaniment. A dominant plot that relegates other plots to margins is a failing on the part of a novel. The modern novel levels out different plots, and so there is no hierarchy, and we don't. One plot does not emerge. One plot does not emerge as overpowering or overbearing over other subplots. So all plots are manifestations, reflections of the same theme, which is at the heart of the novel. So at the same time, each subplot should be indispensable to the completion of the whole. So if we take away one subplot, then the cohesion is somewhere lost. The organic wholeness falls apart somewhere. All these subplots should go back to a single question: and a theme which holds the entire novel together, which props up the entire novel together. And this theme should be visited and revisited again and again, according to Milan Kundera. Now, Immanuel Kant famously appropriates the term architectonics in Critique of Pure Reason as a metaphor which distinguishes technical unity and architectonic unity. So, unity that is achieved architectonically originates from an idea. So, here we are talking about an internal organic unity, something that is not imposed from outside, something that doesn't look fake. Now, unity achieved without architectonics, in other words, the technical unity is more extrinsic, and it is something that merely conforms technically to the requirements of a form. It's a more mechanical form of unity coming from without, and so such a notion of unity is more limited. Bakhtin in Art and Answerability says that an artistic whole is called mechanical when its constituent elements are united only in space and time by some external connections, and there are not, I mean, they are not imbued with internal unity of meaning. The parts of such a whole are contiguous and touch one another, but in themselves they remain alien to each other. On the other hand, architectonic unity refers to a poetic unity. A, there is a poetic glue which is harder, which is natural, uh, and so there is a kind of natural continuation rather than a technical continuation among the different strands or the different plots within a novel. Coming back to Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse, we see that in this novel, To the Lighthouse, the author dismisses the popular notion of a universal time, a universal physical time that, you know, acts as a governing force, controlling individuals' actions and not decelerating or accelerating for anybody. Contrarily, Woolf shows in her novel that time exists within individuals. So, individual times for individuals, and the characters are capable of slowing down or pacing up the time. This slowed down concept of time has remarkable consequences, both on readers' perception of the novel and on the novel structure itself. So, this greatly also draws on what's happening in science in the modern period. So, we have Einstein's theory of relativity, where everything becomes relative. Values, human values, way of looking at the world become relative. So, with the theory of relativity in science, we emerge with a cacophony with layers, and this could go on to comment on the questions of or the categories of race, ethnicity, ways of being, ways of different religions, different worldviews. So that's the kind of that's the kind of discordance, a happy discordance that one is looking at in modernity. The loss of concordance, the loss of an ugly synchrony is a kind of relief to the modern period, more so in the postmodern period. We see that To the Lighthouse explores time at every scale, tracking the intricate thoughts and impressions within a single lived second, while also meditating on the infinity of geological time. It stretches back into the past only to move forward into the future beyond the span of human knowledge. In this novel, part one, The Window, and part two, The Lighthouse, occur almost in real time, as the action described takes place within a period more or less equivalent to the period of the time that the reader takes to read the action. To the lighthouse ultimately demonstrates the inadequacy of the physical clock time to measure human experiences, to understand the human psyche, how it functions. So life is not felt, as Wolf shows, through orderly and chronological progression of seconds, second by second. Instead, 1 minute seems to drag on an eternity while the next 2 decades speed by. That's how the internal universe or the internal concept of time inside the human psyche functions. An individual at 1 second is aware of a human lifespan as a long, luxurious stretch, and at the next second perceives it to be an infinitesimal fraction of Earth's more enduring existence. So memories return in the present, and they live on, sometimes seeming never to have passed. So memories, sometimes we just move too ahead in time, and sometimes we carry the burden, the baggage of memory, which never seems to go away. So the key words concerning the modern novel that Kundera is arguing against are description and illustration. So that is the archaic model of novel writing, with too much description and illustration. Novels that merely represent a society or history to itself. It's a very self-referential exercise anyway. So what Kundera is advocating for is something far more active, as he sees the novelist as an explorer, as a practitioner of a meditative interrogation or interrogative meditation. Kundera tells us in Unbearable Lightness of Being that asking questions is like taking a scalpel to the totalitarian veil of kitsch that pervades the modern world, kitsch that protects both the unthinking masses and those in power who like their masses to be as unthinking as possible. So, asking a question is like um, tearing off, scraping off that veil of that state of unthinkingness, which is kitsch. So, according to Kundera, novel dies in any sort of a totalitarian regime where there can be no longer any self-discovery and conquest of being. He's constantly referring to this in his books, such as the Book of Laughter and Forgetting, The Joke, Unbearable Lightness of Being, where he constantly criticizes the communist Russia. So, novel does not belong to a society and people who are looking for glib and quick responses to the questions that are posed by life. So, novel is not, in other words, lived up to its full capacity, what the novel as a form can give to a society, unless the society is ready to explore all meanings in all their complexity. So now Kundera's novel Slowness talks about the bond of slowness with memory and the bond of speed with forgetting. And Kundera is also referring to the dancer syndrome, what has become of the modern society, how humans have emerged as modern subjects, where we are constantly dancing in front of an invisible audience, and it's an outwardly driven life without any introspection. We constantly seek affirmation from without, not from within. So novel cannot become through existing only in one given moment, as if there is no tomorrow. The essence of the novel lies in reflecting the future through speaking to the past. So there is this connectivity also. The novel is not hanging in the vacuum. The entire tradition of novels should come across as continuous and a comprehensive work, although the later novels differ from the uh, earlier prosaic style, earlier, archaic styles of writing. There is still a dialogue, right? The dialogue is not cut off. Because the trend of the world is to make a progress through the forgetting of being, forgetting of the past, and living the present as though it's a piece of time hanging over. So, which actually leads to a fragmented existence. Such an idea of social progress counteracts the flourishing of the novel's world. Like I already said a few moments back how the novel's progress counteracts the traditional idea of social progress. Novel is not about disjuncture from past styles of thought, but it grows precisely because of and through these styles of thought, how much ever it may want to differ or deny those styles of writing. So Kundera's understanding is that novel unfolds the self through its existential problem. Looking at his work, Unbearable Lightness of Being, Thomas, the male protagonist, has a past that is not delineated, and he suffers a crisis of lightness, unrootedness, whereas his counterpart, Teresa, suffers the weight of her past, where her mother's personality is so overbearing it constantly comes back to influence her. She is too deeply rooted. So, novel is about a poetic meditation, variegated ways of understanding this crisis. The author's reflections are projected through a character, where the author is constantly discovering the character's perceptions and attitudes, thinking deeply through the character than the character could think for themselves. So as the character becomes a mouthpiece of the author, through the character the author is also discovering himself or herself constantly. Novel as a self-discovery mechanism, novel as a mechanism that enables self-discovery for the novelist. So Kundera means that novel happens through an unconscious drive where even the author doesn't know the end, what it would lead to, but is obsessively at it. A novel that proceeds in the form of a mathematical structure where everything is premeditated and calculated suffers some form of inadequacy and mediocrity. So, while Dostoevsky wanted to meticulously grasp and limn this madness of reason, trying to determine every act through to the end, trying to give reasons for every act of his characters, we see Tolstoy insisted on opening up the illogical, the irrational side of the self through unconventional, unexpected acts and decisions. Kundera states that the novel does not draw on philosophy or theory, but separately in its own way, novel suggests some of these philosophies and theories. So, to give an example, psychoanalysis and class struggle have been dealt with by many novelists even before Freud and Marx respectively theorized them. So the essence of the modern world captured in the novel include a sense of radical divestment and a lack of apodictic or clear-cut message. The modern novel takes on the complex world not seriously but through playfulness, irony, and hypothetical situations. Rather than giving a clear statement of thought, a novelist involves in games of paradoxes and contradictions. So dogmatic reflections are constantly averted and exchanged with indirect suggestions, propositions, and this is where a story, an art is constantly overriding any form of thesis or presupposition. So when a central idea is novelized, the conviction is taken out of it. The reader may or may not believe the novelist. Instead, there is play and hypothesis added in the novelist's tone of sharing an idea, unfolding an idea, or a worldview, a philosophy. So this is a transition from the voice of the politician, the philosopher, to that of the voice of the novelist. This is where the difference lies. There is no thesis, there is only hypothesis. Any idea cannot be ultimate in a novel, in a modern novel. Only playing with it, understanding it in all its complexity, with all its layers and nuances, is more important in a modern novel. So author plays with the idea which is further played around with by the reader. I would like to stop here today and we will discuss more in our next lecture. Thank you.